And again, that is, it's really funny that we bring this up because we're going to get to this at the end. You're doing something called Teenage Tycoon, which I think is going to be game changing for folks to get around it. Um, but it really, this is important. A lot of us, myself included, have been very clear. I always see myself as an employee. I was raised to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, climb the ladder. And I thought that was okay. I didn't have a light bulb moment until I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Unfortunately, I didn't read Rich Dad Poor Dad until I was 30 or 31. I'd already lost 80% of my net worth in a stock market crash, felt like a complete failure. And that book is not a how-to book, but it's a book that turned on a new light switch that I didn't even know was there. So I loved it. We're going to get into Teenage Tycoon in a minute, but I think this is an important inflection point. Is yeah, you could go to school, get a good career. Being a pilot, I'm sure in the military is a great career, but sometimes you do need to invest in yourself and see yourself as that investment. And admittedly, it's something that I'm not great at as well. But you spend 25 grand, you do sign that check. The check clears. You now get in a room with people where, frankly, you're the smallest guy. But I'm sure you were just soaking it all in. Tell us about that first day, maybe, that first morning, those first 4 hours. Did you already know that it was a wise investment or what happened?
Yeah. So the first thing that happened was you're right. I was the smallest fish in the room, basically. I kind of embellished a little bit on my application
Of course
to,
you did.
to like make it sound like I was doing a lot. And
Yeah.
Justin legitimately told me, he's like, when we found out who you were and when you showed up to the first event and you're talking about what you're doing, we were worried that we shouldn't have let you in. Like we were really concerned that you're bringing down the average of the group because people in there were doing, I'd say Mike Simmons was probably the guy who was the biggest in there at the time, other than Andy McFarlane and Justin Williams. And Mike and his partner were doing like four deals a month, 3 or 4
Wow.
deals a month. And other people were doing like a deal a month. So these
Mhm.
are people who were just like ramping up and getting going. And I'd say I remember even before I got there, I got on a call with Andy McFarlane, and he changed my entire mindset on hiring and being like what systems and
Ah,
processes really are. So I got a couple calls with him before showing up to the first event, and I'm glad I did because I remember flying out to California for the first event. It was in San Clemente. It was at this like motel basically. And I didn't know anyone. I was really uncomfortable. I flew out to San Diego, saw my cousin for a day, and then I rented a car and drove up there. And I was just so nervous. I like never done anything like this before, never even been to an event, don't know anybody in the room at all. Had like 2 calls with Andy. I remember seeing Justin walk around, but he was this like a guy who had
mythical
a
feature. Yeah.
podcast who I
Yeah.
was like, he's like the biggest celebrity I've ever met in my life, other than LL Cool J in Atlanta one time. And it was just so surreal that I was like, are people even going to show up? Like, is this
Yeah.
legitimate? I just paid $25,000. So it was interesting. But before that, Andy changed my mindset on hiring. I had actually hired my first person by this point, like a month
Mm.
before. Like you talked about fast action. I was really fighting hiring. It's not something I wanted to do, but I had no time. So he showed me exactly how to hire, how to put together a pay package, like work through that. And then I had also been connected with one of the other members who wanted to passively invest money.
Mm.
So he didn't want to be active, but he had a lot of money. And so me and him actually started doing some JVs.
Okay.
And before I even showed up, we were doing in the process of doing 2 flips that I was buying at auction together.
Nice.
So I had actually taken action and seen some progress before showing up there. So
Nice.
I mean, that was a huge win right out of the gate, is finding a money
Yeah.
lender who we did 50-50 JVs. He lived in California, I lived in Pensacola, and he funded everything and I was doing all the work. And
Yeah.
so we had some projects lined up that were already going to net me probably 30K, like 2 houses, 30K profit each, so 60K.
Right.
And I mean, I already had almost like in my
Yeah.
mind had my membership back. Like
Yeah.
that was from
Nice
the
stuff.
first month.
Oh,
And
that's
then I
awesome.
showed up there and the first few hours just meeting the people and the kind of people that they attracted. So like the integrity in those folks, the
Hmm.
heart there, and just listening to Mike Simmons talk for like 4 hours about what they were doing. I had 40 pages of notes of stuff that I mean,
Yeah.
I had a book full of information that I brought back. And for
Mm.
me, it was just about implementing the 1 or 2 things that made the most sense for me at the time.
Yeah.
And it was something I'd never been a part of, is a group like that where people are like talking about everything that they're doing and sharing it all.
Hmm.
And I attribute it back to kind of like the fraternity that I was in or other places that I like paid for a membership to be around people that I feel like were very much like me that I enjoyed being with,
Hmm.
where I'm basically like paying for my friends,
Yep.
which I mean, being in a fraternity and being in the military, like I already know that. Like I've already done that. So it was really great. I mean, it just they
Hmm.
put together a great room. It was a curated community of other like-minded people. And
Hmm.
honestly, one thing that I haven't ever really talked about much is Andy and Justin are members of the LDS church. So most people would say they're Mormon. What I realized there is when we showed up, it was a community of like no drinking, no cussing, no like it was a great family value type place and
Mm.
a very religion centered community. Now I'm a Christian, but it was very much like that. And
Hmm.
what I loved is in the evenings, we weren't going out like in the military. I was drinking a lot. I
Yeah.
was, I just wasn't in a great environment there. And
Right.
so going to this place, we were out talking about business, talking about the stuff I love. And I found a place that like accepted me and liked me. And I didn't have to be intoxicated. I had to be
Mm.
this like, I felt like my
Yeah.
whole life, that's kind of the
Yeah.
person that I had to be to fit in and get along in the military and other places that I put myself in. I mean, that's my fault. It's my fault. And so
Hmm.
it just opened up a whole new door for me to kind of just change into the person that I really feel like I should be. And so it
That's
was really
awesome.
cool. Like that was an intangible that I really ever really talk about. So
Yeah, I think that's it's definitely, and again, you've continued that on. I've been lucky enough to be a part of a couple of your events, and that still holds true. Everything you've just went through is fun. It is family oriented. Kids are there. I think it's great that you
yeah,
allow kids to come for free, which is a huge thing to do. That's awesome.